rusty wheels and knew I'd take her home. I brought her to my farm in an Amish neighborhood where simple living's valued. She'd be loved and understood. I put her on a treadle stand and coaxed her wheel to turn. I felt her joy and easing with my study and concern. I cleaned her and I oiled her, showed her off to all my friends, repaired the hurts of years and let her sow again.
Hello everybody, welcome back. So it's been quite a while since you've seen this machine. This is my Singer 115, and I think last time I had a video on her, I pretty much threw a little temper tantrum, shut it all down because there were some pretty big issues on her. First of all, you can see she is all together again. The hand crank, it's just one of those basic Chinese hand cranks. I do make a couple little modifications to try to make them a little bit more substantial inside where the handle attaches to this pin here. I do open it up and squeeze a little bit of this little nylon line in there. It acts like a bushing, you know. And then where this little screw goes in there, I put one of these little nylon washers. Again, it takes some of the rattle out. This handle was a problem. I had to bend it a couple ways to make it fit, but you know, we are all good. So one of the things that was an issue last time was, there were several issues, but the first one was this bobbin winder, and I called in my buddy Bob, and I know he didn't mention it on his channel, but basically this machine has the body of a Singer 15, but because it's a 115 it uses narrower bobbins, and I didn't have the original bobbin winder. I was going to try to make a 15 bobbin winder work, and it wouldn't because this is a narrow bobbin winder and it needed a narrower little follower here. And not only that, let me see if I can find the parts he sent too. Basically, he calls it the throw, but it's like the size in there of the different bobbins is different. So basically, he reformed, you know, out in his machine shop-ishness, he reformed this little follower here, cut it down, grinded it off for me, changed out the gears to one that's going to fit on here, and so now it works. Thank you very much, because that almost pushed me over the edge. The other thing on this machine that probably nearly pushed me over the edge, and honestly, I have been working on this all morning. It had a problem, and I've seen on different 115, you know, vintage forums that other people have had this problem, where the thread, the bobbin, or the needle thread was getting wrapped around the shaft of the hook down there. And what I ended up doing after much troubleshooting and taking it apart and putting it back together and taking it apart and putting it back together is I found on this machine in particular, the shaft itself was deformed so that the hook could not lay where it needed to in the right position so that everything would work well. So I had to get my Dremel with, hang on a sec, a little bitty grinding wheel, you know, and just hit that on that rough edge, and it didn't take much. Once I saw what I needed to do, it didn't take much, but the hours of getting it to that point, you know, was harsh. So I just want to give you a quick little view to wind the bobbin. Of course, you disengage the clutch here by turning this little wheel here back a quarter turn till it stops, and then just run the hand wheel, okay? So you can see the little follower here is going back and forth, and all is well. I do actually already have a bobbin in here, so I'm just going to go ahead and thread up this machine so you can see that she actually does sew. Now, if you can see, the face plate is like a 15. She threads like a 15 does. Let me see if I can move you out a bit here. And so from the top, coming down this side, I'm going to go in between these two tension discs, okay, around over this little bent arm here, and then back up under that spring. So that spring's going to want to come back up. Bringing it up, I'm going to go through this eye here on this take-up lever, and that feels loose to me. Hang on a second. I'm going to check if that needs to be tightened. Yes, it does. I'm glad I checked. Okay, so then coming back down this thread take-up lever, it's going to pop through this eyelet here, okay, through this thread guide, and then I thread the needle from the outside into the base. Okay, so before I actually crank her up again, I'm going to have a sip of coffee, wishing it was stronger, because right now I need it. Every little thing on this machine has been, you know, a bit trying, but we're going to give it a go. I have a size 14 needle in here with this fabric. I think my needle might have gotten dull with all of my troubleshooting. Yep, I can feel it. I need a new needle. While I was working on stuff, I think it got a little bit bent at the tip. So I'm going to grab a new needle, and then we're going to give it a try. There was a couple times while I was trying to get her to go that I didn't have things set just right. So the needle went down onto metal, and that bent the tip. So it was new, now it's new again, and these are just organ needles. She uses just a standard size needle, so that's a good thing, a very good thing. So let me pop this in. It goes in, you know, flat side against the shaft, and I will be right. Okay, her new needle is in, and so let's give her a go. She's sounding good. And she's stitching good too. Okay, so my table wants to turn, so I'm just going to try to hold it from turning with my knees here as I go. The stitch length on this is right here. If I raise it all the way up, that's stitching in place, okay? If I lower it all the way down, that's going to be the longest stitch, like a basting stitch, gathering stitch. Okay, but I just wanted to show you, here she is. So that is actually the back, that is the bobbin, perfectly balanced, perfectly straight. That is the top, a little greasy, just letting you know, a little bit greasy. I need to clean that up, but finally she does sew. So sometimes, you know, this one definitely taught me many, many lessons. Let me put this like midway here and run her for a bit. Lots of troubleshooting, and sometimes you need a puzzle of a machine just to learn from, you know. I have some machines where everything goes together super, super nice, and sometimes you just need that, especially after doing a machine like this. But the tricky ones, you know, they give you a challenge. I love it when I finally overcome the challenge, but I did not film me doing it because it was hours of putting things together, figuring out it did not work, take it apart, and back and forth and back and forth. In a model like this, there's not a whole lot of information out there on how to troubleshoot them. So, you know, sometimes you just do the best you can. Hello, it is me the next morning, and I came up and I was just about to put her in my little camera bay for her glamour shot, and I remembered there was something that I forgot to mention that I was having a lot of trouble with in my last video, so I wanted to point that out. ignore the rusty crustiness of it. This is another 115 hook in terrible condition, but what I wanted to show you is there are two different bobbin cases here, okay? If you want to order a new bobbin case for a Singer 115, this is what you're going to get. And it has a little spring out there, okay? If you found an old original bobbin case, this is what you're going to get. It's got like a little, you know, lobster claw kind of hook up here at the top. All right. These are different in many, many ways. And one of the main things is these old ones will set into the original bobbin case and stay there. Let's see if I can do this on one that's rusty crusty here. There we go. Okay, so this is the original one that I've popped into here. And as you can see, it's going to stay put, all right? Now, if I take this one out and I try that with the new one and I put it in, it's going to want to turn. The problem with the new ones is over the outside of the case. The original ones have this little bump right here, and that bump acts like a stopper up against this part right there. Get a pointing thingy here. This part right here of the bobbin case. All right, so without something sticking out like a little bumper right there, if you can see how that's lining up right there, so it's going to hold still, it's just going to want to spin. And that was another thing that was giving me an emotional breakdown last video because I couldn't figure it out, okay? So I would say if you have a 115 and you absolutely cannot find an original bobbin case, well, I do have one extra, so maybe I will part with that. I don't know yet. But what you would have to do is create a bumper on your new case. So I would say if you line these two up like this, let me get a little marker here, because if you need one, you won't have this position. It looks like the bumper is right here, okay? And if I measure that distance, we have, what is that? It's like 1/8 of an inch-ish, if you look right there. You know, this is not totally precise. It's a Harbor Freight measuring caliper and everything, but we're going to get as close as we can. And so what I would say is if you could put like a little blob of JB Weld or solder a little blob of something there, just something that's going to allow this to stop when it runs into that piece. Otherwise, it's just going to keep spinning and it's not going to work, okay? So that's something else I learned on this machine. And I have found that there's, for weird machines, you know, and I'm considering this a weird machine because there's not a gazillion of them made, it's hard to find new things that work. And a lot of times if you order new bobbins, like for like my 319 and stuff, you order what you would think is a new bobbin that's going to fit that machine. It doesn't actually fit. It's like a fraction of a millimeter too narrow so that it won't work on the bobbin winder and stuff. And you might be able to work around that using, you know, something different instead of the traditional bobbin winders. But just showing you on the inside, this is the new version, this is the original version, what the insides look like, okay? And that's the outside. So yeah, they are different. If you can, try to find this. If you have to use this, you're going to need to put some kind of a little blob of something right here to act as a blocker so that it won't come loose in your hook. And that is about all I'm going to say about that. So let me go ahead and get her into my little photo booth to take her glamour shots.